Well, it was over for Gustavo Lemos, but it's just beginning for you at the elite level. Now you become the WBO mandatory challenge for Dennis Berenchik's title. So, what is the discussion been since your big performance with Top Rank, and what's next for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm not gonna drop the location just yet, but for sure, Dennis Perencik is my next opponent, undefeated fighter, pressure fighter. He's from the Ukraine. He's friends with Lomachenko, and he's friends with the world champion Yugis, not Yugis, Usyk. And he's a great fighter, man. I feel like he's slept on. It's crazy because last year we were supposed to get in a fight with him, but now that he's a world champion, everything works out for the greater good. And I just feel like this fight, going into this fight, it's gonna be another like exciting fight. This is an exciting fight. It's not a boring fight, and just I know people just want to come out there and support and see what the businessman is gonna show that night for sure.
The Keyshawn Davis clout chase. The blueprint is out, is fully exposed. Keyshawn Davis did a brand new interview with Top Rank ESPN where he states his next fight is Dennis Berenchik, right? He says, that's my next fight. You guys heard the clip at the beginning. That's my next fight. I'm not going to spoil the location. After all that talk about Gervonta Davis, you hate to see it. Now, on my channel, I strive for accuracy. I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. And I know that I'm the best, and you know that I'm the best when it comes to breaking boxing, accuracy, years in the game. I'm supposed to be on everybody's list, right? This is exactly what I told you when Keyshawn had his last fight. So for starters, I got to take you guys back. Before he even fought Gustavo Lemos, he had Tank's name in his mouth. Like he hadn't even cleared him. And he was like, oh, Tank this, Tank this. I want to fight Tank. I'm not leaving the weight class. I'm not leaving lightweight till I fight Tank. Tank this, Tank that. Typical. Typical. I told you guys, Tank Davis must be doing something right where everybody in the game before they mention his name. It's ridiculous. It's insane at this point. I remember before Ryan actually got the Tank fight, from basically his marketing and his following and his reach and those impressions, Ryan, every time he had a fight, dazn, Golden Boy, and the commentators of said telecast, like let's say it was Ryan Garcia versus Emmanuel Tiptoes or Javier Fortuna and Ryan, right? When he was fighting these fights before the Tank Davis fight, that's all they would talk about. If he wins, because he was winning, he was undefeated when he fought Tank. So every time he would win, dazn would just talk about Gervonta Davis before the fight, before the weigh-in, talk about Gervonta Davis. Shakur Stevenson, if he fights William Zepeda, guess what? There's going to be a lot of talk about, hey, if you beat Zepeda, are you ready for Gervonta Davis? Tank. And Keyshawn was no different. So that's something all of these fighters have in common. And Tank is so sought out and so popping that you got people not even in his weight class mentioning him, like Conor Benn. You got guys like Conor Benn said they want to fight Tank and things like that. You got guys like Teofimo Lopez who said he wants to move up talking about Tank. So I've seen this a million times. But after the performance, because Keyshawn did have a sharp performance versus Gustavo Lemos. After the performance, he continued to talk about Tank. Tank this, he need to fight me. I'm sick of this. Look at his resume. He's fooling you. I'm not fooled. Come fight me. He's tricking y'all. All these things. And when Keyshawn was ranting about Gervonta Davis, he dang near sounded like he was on the verge of tears. He been tricking the boxing game too long. He been tricking the boxing game too long. He make Ish look better than what it is. He's making it look good. Right? And the funny thing is, you look at Keyshawn's resume, and I said this in real time. Keyshawn's a good fighter, but you look at his resume, you're one to talk. You fought Pedraza when he was a skeleton. He was like washed. Like he had already been through Tank. Tank was really the first one of note, that fought Pedraza. And then Top Rank just kept recycling him, giving him to Lomachenko. He was moving up in weight. Then he moved back down in weight later in his career. You know what I'm saying? So he was a crash dummy at that point. Pedraza was used up. Like when he was fighting Tank, he had a different hairstyle. By the time he got Keyshawn, he like bald. I don't even think he had hair anymore. So he was at a way different point of his career. And Keyshawn, everything is funny because I notice in this world, a lot of times people project. They'll say something and say it applies to you when really it applies to them. So it's like speaking into a mirror. Like someone will say, oh, this person's jealous. And then they're the ones that are jealous. There's the ones that got envy and, green in their eyes. You know what I mean? And that's what it was with Keyshawn. He got like 12 fights or whatnot. And he's talking about Tank's resume. You've never fought a Pitbull Cruz. You've never fought undefeated Ryan Garcia, undefeated Barrios. You haven't fought these types of guys. Barrios right now is at welterweight. So he's in a whole nother weight class and he's a champion. And, some of the fights have been tough, but outside of Keith Thurman, that's the only fight he's lost since the Tank fight. And he has a good name like Ugas on his record and Maidana's brother, Fabian Maidana and stuff like that. Keyshawn is doing a lot of talking, and that's the problem with this Gen Z. He's like, oh, you've been tricking the boxing game too long. Like you doing all this and you was screaming out Tank's name. And then now we find out you're not even fighting him. You're fighting Denis Berinchenko. You know what I mean? And to me, I would favor Keyshawn in that fight because I don't really rate Denis Berinchenko that highly. He fought Navarrete, who that's his only like real signature win. And that was a guy who was moving up in weight with the style that's like, I guess awkward, but it's awkward for them lighter weight classes. Like when you fight and you're not like defensive minded and you just keep moving up, you're not going to be able to get away with that against bigger guys if your defense is leaky. And that's exactly what happened to Navarrete. And I think he's moving back down in weight because he's kind of big, but and maybe he's not a gym rat or something like that. But at the end of the day, the things when you're way bigger than guys in the smaller weight classes, you could get away with that awkwardness, because you have the crazy size differential and advantage over them. But if a person has a certain style and they keep moving up, that size advantage goes away. And then now you have to be able to do, like, for example, the opposite is Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk was a successful cruiserweight, and he has like an awkward, tricky style with some feints and foot movement and angles and things like that. But he's been able to put on weight and still do that because heavyweights aren't moving exactly like him. And he's a southpaw, right? So over time, he's been able to perfect his style. But Navarrete is not a guy like that. He's not like a Usyk because Usyk has fundamentals and a lot of amateur experience. Navarrete was succeeding versus like Oscar Valdez's and stuff, and he was like taller than them guys. He moved up versus Denis Berinchenko, and he didn't look that great at that weight class. So I'm not impressed by Denis Berinchenko, and this is clearly the top ranked playbook. Clout chase Tank Davis, talk about Tank, and put this fake pressure up, knowing Tank was fighting Lamont Roach, which I also said, and knowing that Keyshawn Davis was fighting Denis Berinchenko, and tried to build some buzz around your name. It's like a parasite. A parasite needs a host. So that's what these guys do. They get a big name like Tank and they leech off of that name. And for me, as a man, couldn't be me. Of course, like, okay, you're a fighter, you want to fight everybody, but you got to make your own path. It's like David Benavidez. One thing that I really respect is he clearly wants the Canelo Alvarez fight, but he's not going to be limited to not having a career because Canelo hasn't given him an opportunity. So what is he doing? He's finding the next best options and available options. The Vodsticks, the Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, and now he's about to fight David Morrell, who is a sensational fighter on his way up, and he has an opportunity to thwart all of that. So much respect to David Benavidez. Again, Benavidez could just try to live in the shadow of Canelo and not be getting the Canelo fight and get mad and, just keep clout chasing. But he's calling out Canelo, but he's still moving. Keyshawn, he literally fought Lemos, who also, like Pedraza, moved down in weight. He destroys him because, to me, that's not the same Lemos that fought Hitchens. You guys can say I'm hating or whatever. I really could care less. He missed weight by a lot, and he looked horrible. It didn't even look like the same fighter. But Keyshawn did his thing and showed up despite the pressures and the hometown fight and things like that. So credit for that. But I seen what I seen. And it just goes to show you that the clout chasing is absolutely real. Mention Tank to try to get clicks and views, knowing your team can't get that done. And at the end of the day, you won't be fighting Tank, but let's use his name to try to uplift our name. Typical.